Consistency isn't glamorous. It's not loud. It doesn't demand attention. Yet it's the quiet force that separates those who wish from those who become. While the world chases intensity, the wise pursue rhythm. Because true power is not found in what you can do once, but in what you can repeat, calmly, deliberately, endlessly. You're listening to Noiseless Narrative, where stillness meets strength. And today, we're stepping into the truth that changes everything. Greatness is built, not in bursts of inspiration, but in steady alignment. Consistency is the foundation of all mastery, the bridge between potential and reality, between knowing and becoming. Stay until the end of this reflection, because by the time we're done, you will no longer see discipline as a burden. You will understand it as liberation. You will see that consistency isn't just about effort, it's about identity. It's not what you do, it's who you become through repetition. Take a deep breath. Let it anchor you to this moment. Because what we're about to explore isn't about motivation, it's about evolution. The truth is, everyone starts strong. Beginnings are filled with energy. The vision is clear, the path feels possible. But soon reality arrives, the resistance, the boredom, the doubt. That's where most people stop. Not because they lack potential, but because they mistake discomfort for misalignment. They assume the absence of motivation means the dream isn't meant for them. But the wise know better. They know that the real test begins when inspiration fades. They know that consistency is not fueled by emotion. It's anchored in intention. Motivation is a spark. Consistency is the fire that never goes out. And here's the paradox. Most people think consistency means doing more. But true consistency isn't about volume. It's about presence. It's about showing up fully, even in small ways, again and again, until your actions become part of your nature. Take a moment to breathe that in. Because once you understand this, discipline stops being a cage. It becomes freedom. When you are consistent, you no longer depend on fleeting bursts of energy. You become grounded, steady amidst chaos, reliable in the face of uncertainty. You no longer chase results, you embody the process. That's what makes consistency the real superpower. It transforms you into someone unstoppable not because you move fast, but because you never stop moving. Every great creation you've ever admired, every book, every song, every invention, every legacy, was not born from passion alone. It was born from repetition, from the unglamorous, unseen hours, from the willingness to do the same thing again and again until it transcended form and became art. That's what consistency does. It sanctifies the ordinary. But to master consistency, you must first understand what destroys it. The first enemy of consistency is perfectionism, the illusion that every effort must be flawless. This mindset kills momentum before it even begins, because perfection is static and consistency is fluid. The more you chase perfection, the more you resist progress. Consistency requires humility, the acceptance that showing up imperfectly still matters. That progress is made in motion, not in theory. Every imperfect action compounds. Every small effort multiplies. It's like a river carving through stone, not by force, but by persistence. Day after day, the flow continues, and eventually, what once seemed unmovable transforms. So if you find yourself struggling to stay consistent, it's not because you're weak. It's because you've been told consistency must be loud, that it must look impressive, feel exciting, or produce instant results. But the truth is, consistency often feels like quiet repetition. It feels like showing up when no one's watching. It feels like peace, not adrenaline. And yet, within that stillness, something profound happens. Each repeated action rewires the mind. Each repetition deepens your identity. You stop needing motivation because action becomes instinct. You are no longer pushing yourself to do something. You are simply being who you've become. That's the real power of consistency. It's not about self-control. It's about self-creation. Take a slow, mindful breath. Let that truth ground you. Because the reason most people never experience the peace of consistency is that they chase speed over depth. But consistency doesn't care how fast you go. It only asks that you keep going. And perhaps that's what you need to hear right now. that your slow progress still counts, that the small steps matter more than the perfect ones, that the power you seek is not hidden in the future, but in the act of returning to your path today. Consistency is devotion in motion. If these words calm your spirit and awaken your focus, subscribe to Noiseless Narrative, because every reflection here is a sanctuary for the disciplined, the mindful, and the becoming. Now let's go deeper, because there's something even more profound to uncover. Consistency is not built on willpower, it's built on identity. Consistency is not something you do, it's someone you become. That's the shift most people never make. They treat consistency as an act of willpower, not as a reflection of identity. They say, "I'm trying to be disciplined," instead of, "I am a disciplined person." That one shift, from effort to embodiment, changes everything. Because when consistency is part of who you are, it no longer drains you. You no longer wake up negotiating with yourself about what needs to be done. You act, not because you feel like it, but because it's simply your nature. That's what identity-based consistency means, aligning your habits with your self-concept. Every repeated behavior becomes a vote for the person you wish to become. And over time, those votes accumulate until there's no separation between your goals and your identity. Take a deep breath here. Let that idea sink in. You are not what you occasionally do. You are what you repeatedly become through your patterns. So if you want to change your life, you don't need more motivation. You need to change the story you tell yourself about who you are, because your actions always follow your beliefs. If you believe you're inconsistent, your mind will find ways to prove that belief true. But the moment you begin saying, "I am consistent, I am dependable, I am disciplined," even before it feels true, you begin to rewrite your internal narrative. And over time, your behavior catches up to your belief. This is how masters are built, not through endless bursts of inspiration, but through the slow sculpting of identity. Consistency at its core is an act of self-trust that it's telling yourself, "I will show up," and then proving it true. Each time you follow through, you reinforce that trust. And each time you break it, you weaken it. That's why inconsistency often feels heavy, because it's not just the task you're avoiding. It's the betrayal of your own word. But here's the beautiful part. Trust can be rebuilt. Always. One kept promise at a time. So instead of asking, "How can I stay consistent?" begin asking, "How can I rebuild trust with myself?" When trust is restored, consistency becomes natural. You stop seeking discipline from outside yourself. You stop chasing productivity hacks or motivational bursts. You act with quiet assurance, because you know that when you decide, you will follow through. That is the essence of peace. But let's be honest, being consistent doesn't mean being robotic. That IT means showing up with awareness, not force. It means understanding your rhythms, your highs and lows, your energy cycles, and working with them, not against them. The wise don't push blindly. They align deliberately, they rest consciously, they plan compassionately, and because of that, they sustain what others burn out from. Consistency isn't about perfection, it's about rhythm. The sun doesn't rise perfectly every day. Some mornings are cloudy, but it always rises. And that's what matters. That's how you must see yourself, not as a machine that must perform flawlessly, but as a rhythm that must return faithfully. Take a slow breath. Inhale patience. Exhale pressure. Consistency is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters, repeatedly, intentionally, peacefully. If you look closely, every area of mastery, art, business, health, spirituality, comes down to this principle. Consistency compounds that it's invisible at first. You may not see progress for weeks, months, even years. But behind the scenes, something powerful is building: momentum. Momentum is consistency's reward. It's what happens when action becomes effortless. It's the point where the weight of starting disappears, and movement begins to carry you. But momentum can't be faked. You can't create it with shortcuts or bursts of energy. It's earned through quiet persistence, through the days when you feel uninspired, unfocused, or tired, and you still choose to take one small step forward. Those small steps are not insignificant, they are sacred. Each one is a declaration. I am not controlled by mood. I am guided by mission. That is what separates the inconsistent from the unstoppable. Most people believe success belongs to the talented. But talent fades without consistency. Passion burns out without rhythm. Vision remains a dream without daily action. Consistency is what keeps your fire alive long after others have quit. But to sustain it, you must understand the subtle enemy that hides behind your patterns. Emotional reasoning. Emotional reasoning whispers, "I'll do it when I feel ready." It convinces you that your emotions must align before you act. But emotions follow motion, not the other way around. You cannot wait to feel disciplined to act disciplined. You act first, and the feeling arrives after. Take another breath. Let this truth settle in your chest. Your emotions are weather. Your commitment is the climate. Weather changes, climate sustains. Consistency is the climate of your transformation. And yes, there will be days when you break the rhythm, days when you fall short, when exhaustion takes over, when life interrupts your focus. That's not failure. That's feedback. The key is what happens next. Do you let one missed day become a story about who you are? Or do you simply return the next day, quietly, steadily, without judgment? The consistent don't count their missteps, they count their returns. And that's why they always progress. Because real consistency is not about never falling. It's about how quickly you return to your path after you do. Take this moment right now to remember, you are not inconsistent because you lack discipline. You are inconsistent because you keep starting over with judgment, not compassion. Release that weight. You don't need punishment to stay consistent. You need peace, because peace sustains what pressure destroys. And as you listen to these words, feel that calm returning, that subtle knowing that you are capable of showing up again. That no matter how many times you've paused, you can begin once more. The story isn't over, that it's deepening. But the story doesn't end here. In the next reflection, we'll explore how consistency becomes transcendence, how showing up daily transforms not only your actions but your spirit. Because when consistency becomes who you are, it ceases to be a tool for success. It becomes the language of mastery itself. Take a deep, quiet breath. Let the next part be your turning point. There comes a moment, somewhere between exhaustion and clarity, when you realize consistency isn't about effort anymore. It's about peace. It's not about pushing harder, but about surrendering to rhythm. You stop wrestling with resistance, and instead, you begin to flow with intention. You stop needing to feel inspired, and you begin to act from alignment. You don't fail because you're weak. You fail because you forget. You forget who you are when motivation fades. You forget what truly matters when results take too long. You forget that consistency was never meant to be fueled by excitement. It was meant to be guided by clarity. The truth is, most people don't fail at consistency because they lack discipline. They fail because they rely on temporary emotion to drive a permanent pursuit. You're listening to Noiseless Narrative, where stillness meets strength. And today, we're going to strip away the illusions around consistency, the beliefs that keep you starting over, the patterns that drain your energy, and the quiet misunderstandings that make you think you've failed when, in truth, you've simply lost alignment. So breathe in slowly, let your shoulders drop, and prepare to understand why you fall off track, and how to finally stop the cycle. Consistency begins with intention, but survives through identity. Yet most people approach it backward. They start with force, with plans, habits, systems, but they never address who they must become for those habits to last. You can wake up early for a week, journal for a month, train hard for 40 days, and still revert back if your inner narrative remains the same. Why? Because behavior follows identity. And if deep down, you still see yourself as inconsistent, no system can save you. This is the first reason you fail to stay consistent. You act from identity conflict. You try to build a disciplined life on a foundation of self-doubt. You keep trying to do before you learn to be. Every time you force yourself to take action without changing the belief underneath, you create resistance. That resistance drains your energy, and eventually you stop, not because the task is too hard, but because your mind is tired of fighting your self-image. Think about it. When someone sees themselves as a runner, They don't argue with themselves every morning about whether to run. It's just what they do. But when someone sees running as something they're trying to do, rather than who they are, every decision becomes a negotiation. Every day becomes a battle between identity and intention. And identity always wins. So when you fail to stay consistent, don't just ask, "Why did I stop?" Ask instead, "Who did I believe I was when I stopped?" Because until you change the belief about who you are, every effort will feel like friction. But the story doesn't end there. Because even when you start believing you can be consistent, another trap appears, one that's far quieter, but even more dangerous. It's the illusion of intensity. You see, most people confuse consistency with speed. They start strong, fueled by excitement and momentum, convinced that pushing harder means lasting longer. But intensity is not consistency. Intensity burns bright and fades fast. Consistency glows quietly and endures. You fail because you set the pace of a sprinter when life requires the rhythm of a marathon. You burn through your energy chasing perfection, rather than building a sustainable flow. And when fatigue inevitably arrives, you mistake it for failure, when in truth, it's simply the body asking for rhythm. Real consistency doesn't demand constant motion. It demands alignment with your natural pace. It's the art of balancing discipline with awareness, action with rest, striving with stillness. Because if you can't sustain the pace, you can't sustain the path. Pause here for a moment. Take a slow, deliberate breath. Let it remind you that consistency is built one inhale, one exhale at a time. The third reason you fail is emotional attachment to results. You start something not because you love the process, but because you crave the reward. You begin a new routine, a new goal, a new pursuit, and you secretly hope that the payoff will come quickly enough to keep you motivated. But when results delay, doubt creeps in, and doubt slowly erodes discipline. You lose rhythm not because the path isn't working, but because it isn't working fast enough. And in your mind, slow equals failure. But in truth, slow equals stable. It equals lasting. It equals real. Consistency is the language of time. It doesn't respond to impatience. It rewards alignment. The most profound transformations never announce themselves. They unfold quietly, through repetition, through presence, through moments of invisible effort that accumulate into something extraordinary. So when progress feels invisible, remember this: you are not stuck, you are solidifying. You are not failing, you are forming. Every act done without reward strengthens the muscle of integrity. Every day you show up, even when nothing changes, you're building what most people never will: inner trust. And trust, not motivation, is the true foundation of consistency. Motivation asks, "Do I feel like it today?" Trust says, "I'll do it anyway." Motivation depends on mood. Trust depends on identity. Now breathe again. Inhale calm. Exhale resistance. And let these words settle into the space that used to hold frustration. The fourth reason people fail to stay consistent is the lack of inner silence. The modern mind is crowded. You wake up to noise, you move through distraction, you end your day in overstimulation. And in that noise, you lose connection to your purpose. When the mind is scattered, so is your action. Consistency requires clarity, and clarity cannot exist without silence. Silence allows you to hear the quiet why behind your actions, the reason that sustains you when the noise of the world tries to drown it out. Without that inner stillness, you'll always be pulled by emotion, by comparison, by the endless desire to do more instead of doing what matters. Take a moment to listen to the space between your thoughts, the stillness behind this moment. That's where consistency begins, not in action, but in awareness. Because once you know why you move, the question of whether to move disappears. And maybe that's what's been missing all along. Not discipline, not effort, not willpower, but connection. You've been trying to force consistency from the outside, rather than cultivating it from within. You do not stay consistent because you push harder. You stay consistent because you align deeper. When your actions are rooted in meaning, fatigue loses its power. Distraction fades. Discipline becomes devotion. So as you breathe now, allow yourself to let go of the need to be perfect. Let go of the guilt of starting over. Let go of the. And if these words remind you of your power, if they help you return to that inner calm, consider subscribing to Noiseless Narrative. Because every reflection here is crafted to bring you back to this state, where discipline meets stillness, where progress feels peaceful, and where growth feels natural. Stay with this rhythm. Keep showing up, not for perfection, but for presence. Consistency is not about what you achieve. It's about who you become while you're achieving it. And as long as you return, as long as you stay grounded in purpose, you are already succeeding. Take one last slow breath. Feel how far you've come. The journey of consistency is not about chasing power, that it's about realizing you already have it, quietly, patiently within you. Thank you for listening to Noiseless Narrative, where stillness meets strength.